Hello folks, Linux Mint 21.3 Cinnamon. Filming in 1920 by 1080, please adjust your YouTube player accordingly if necessary. So welcome folks, this video is for any user on Linux Mint. It's mostly geared toward new users, but I'm sure everyone can use this information. And this has to do with what Timeshift is and isn't. You were asked to activate that during your installation process. I'm going to explain what Timeshift is, what it's not, and some tips. So again, welcome folks. One more time, filming in 1920 by 1080. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, the icon should be floating above your time and date area. 360 videos and growing. Linux is for any age. You can read my about statement, my mission statement there, and also you can find some links there. So I'm going to open up my Mint menu and type in Timeshift. And let's go through that. So you may or may not be aware of some of the things you can do with Timeshift, but I'm going to discuss the whole thing today. Well, at least 90%. Our user for today is Bob. It is just a made-up name. So I will need to log in here to give you the settings. I'm going to expand this out a little bit so we have a little bit of room to separate the little categories. I'll start with the hamburger menu. So Timeshift is a system restore utility. Generally, it is not considered a backup program. So a restore utility means it's going to restore your system. And I will tell you one thing, if you don't have it running, you may regret that someday in case you can't log in. The Timeshift utility is generally used when you can't log in. That's in a panic situation. Timeshift is found on your installation media. In other words, the copy that you use to boot up Mint, install Mint, there's where you also can find Timeshift. And it will not request a password. You just click the wizard and hit finish and it'll scan your drive if it's healthy enough for you to do restores. So what does Timeshift not do for you under default condition? Timeshift does not make a snapshot of your personal files by default. If you want to call these snapshots backups, so be it. They're called snapshots in here. You can also find more information on GitHub. This is 2401.1. So up here is also view Timeshift logs. I don't anticipate most of you folks learning how to look at these things, but I will toggle the entry to let you see where it's located. This is Nemo, your file manager. It is currently in elevated privilege mode. On the logs you can open and take a peek at yourself. I'll start at the bottom of the screen first. A lot of people that have been running Mint for a while forget all about this tool. And I've heard the nightmare scenarios where it's this. Someone can't log into their system 4 months from now from whatever reason. And they panic and they grab the installation media, whether it's on USB stick or DVD, and proceed to install their system immediately without realizing they had this thing already in the background. And they could have picked the restore point and did that before they did the install. And in 10 minutes, they could have been up and running instead of having to reinstall Linux Mint and then the wonderful reinstallation of maybe multiple months of applications. There is where it could, quote, save your bacon. As I heard that term a long time ago, it helps you out immensely. All right, so these are snapshots. They're very similar to something what Mac uses for restoring, and also Microsoft, very similar. So down here is the info bar, latest and oldest snapshot. So that would be my latest, and my oldest I would not use. Why? Because it's from 2022 and it is Linux Mint 21 Vanessa. This is Linux Mint 21.3 Virginia. So that would not be a valid restore point. But I thought I'd throw that up there for a little fun. Let's take a look at the latest for a second. If you take your mouse cursor and point at it, you'll see a bubble pop up. Your bubble may be different color depending on the theme you used for Linux Mint. It says run Timeshift and a cryptic name or number. I'm going to open up the file manager. Your icon will look different, but the file manager will operate the same. I'm going to go to the file system and point to this. We're talking run. And then the second folder over is Timeshift, which is located right here. I'm going to open that and it only has one folder. So that one says 86.38.96. That's this one. And here's those files. All right, so that's number one. Number two is tags. If you take your mouse cursor and point at one of these tags, you should see a bubble pop up. Again, a different color maybe if you picked a different theme. I'll read you the stuff on the screen. So O is for on demand. That means that if you manually click one of these, it becomes an O. The other ones are boot, hourly, daily, which is the most common, weekly, and monthly. You can also add a comment if you like in here. Just click and type. I put in manual text ABC blah blah blah. Just double click to edit. You can actually see that. All right, so the tags will tell you what kind of backup. So these were done by the system. One was done yesterday, exactly at 1700, and this one exactly at 1700. It's 24-hour clock. Again, I would not use that one. Okay, so we have Timeshift, latest, oldest. Over here, it just tells me how many. It doesn't tell me what kind of tag that I have on it, but it tells me how many. So what is this word Rsync? A lot of you folks may know what Rsync is, but some not so much. So I'm going to use terminal. If you are brand new to Mint, a special welcome to you. You can type in MAN space Rsync to get a definition of what Rsync is. And then I'll use my way to make this bigger. I'll be Control Shift and plus many times. So it's a copying tool, a very powerful one. I use it heavily. This can be used on local computers and remote computers and servers. It's very versatile, extremely versatile and fast. Again, I use it pretty heavily. I use it mostly with script files. I can also install graphical Rsync, which is called Grsync. I'll touch on that toward the latter part of the video because it is available in your software manager. Rsync is already installed. It runs on most machines in the background if it's being used for something. So Rsync is available because if I hit man Rsync and get a definition, that means it's installed. So that's what the tool that it uses under the hood of Timeshift, using Rsync in my case. 3 terabytes is what I have left on this drive. Your drive varies, right? Yeah. So we have the about and we have the Timeshift logs. Okay. And you can, of course, always toggle the entry point to see the path if you like it, see it in that way. Starting over here, manual creations. Again, when you manually create a current snapshot, it produces an O. Okay. You can also do restores from the live media. In other words, your installation media. You find Timeshift in the menu. Or you can restore it here while you're logged in. Just do that and do restore and follow the directions. There might be a need for some corruption issue or whatever that you may do that occasionally. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that you have that option. Generally, this tool is used when you can't log in. And hopefully you'll never have to use Timeshift, but it is a wonderful tool to have, and I have used it. And it has saved my quote bacon because I didn't have to reinstall everything. The next one is delete. Now, why would you want to delete anything? Well, if you are wanting to make changes and you're running out of hard drive space, you want to reduce the amount of snapshots or backups, if you want to call it that, then we can do that using settings or the wizard. Okay? So I'll come back to the delete in a minute. So the browse here is browse selected snapshot. Location. Okay? I'm going to close that now. So the settings I'm going to But briefly, just point out that it has type, location, schedule, users, which are also in your wizard. And then filters and miscellaneous are two other options that only this box has. That would be date format, and I don't use the filters. Okay, so let's open up the wizard. So you went ahead and installed Mint, and you got the welcome screen, and you went through it, and you picked your themes and whatever else, and light theme, dark themes, that kind of thing. And then you got to the point where it says, please activate Timeshift. And hopefully you did. And you were presented with probably this box here. If you were, you more than likely are using extension 4 hard drive. This is a BTRFS file system. It's fairly new in my book. It's not as tried and true as extension 4, but more importantly, it is a different file system. So Grsync, I gave you the definition of it earlier. So I'm going to hit next. All right, I have several hard drives. You probably will only have one, and most of the time it will be SDA. You can see that all of these other ones are formatted with extension 4. That's the file system. If you have ever operated a Microsoft Windows machine, lately with Windows 10, it's more likely NTFS. And also Macs have their own file system also. Moving along. This is a little bit more important. So leave this option on. I don't recommend turning that off, but more importantly, are you okay with 5 of these on a daily? Does it make 5 of them per day? No, it just says keep 5 of these. Do 1 a day. If you're logged into your system for 5 to 10 minutes, it should make a proper backup, providing you don't have this box open or the system updater box open. It should make a proper backup if your wizard is set for 5. If you're running low on hard drive space and you want to reduce that number, I don't recommend below 2. If you are going to do any kind of deletions, this is where I was going to tell you about this key, is let's assume that you want 3. And you want to have it cycle 3. And it just will replace the oldest one when it makes another one. Does that make sense? So it will just keep 3. If you decided to delete the rest of these, right here, and then close this box, in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, you will have 5 of these again. Because if you did not make a change here, it's still going to continue its 5. You'll need to reduce that number to like 3 if you're wanting to do it that way. If you can afford the hard drive space, leave the default at 5 is my recommendation. And my recommendation really isn't going below 2 at all on any occasion. You always want to have 2 restore points at a bare minimum. 5 is a wonderful way of doing things. Okay, that's all I mean by that. So technically you will have 5 of these, and most of the time it will be Ds. Again, this is a manual on demand, and so is that one. That's why they have O's on them. And generally this will say 5. If you have just installed Linux Mint, it'll say 0. You can also manually do this to produce the O. That'll be your first one. And then if you actively log in every day for 5 to 10 minutes, then it will make backups or snapshots. I'm going to continue the wizard now because I have an important thing to talk about when it comes to this. As I told you what Timeshift is and what it isn't. Under default condition, it isn't making a snapshot of your personal home folders. So your icon will look different, but this is the file manager. So Bob is our user. None of his home folders are being snapshotted or backed up. Excluded. All of these are just made up name users, and none of them are having active snapshots being made. If you decide to include, your backups will become very large. And more importantly, the very first one will take a while. Just be prepared for that. I'm going to hit next. Now we're complete. As I told you, there's 2 more settings in here, which I don't use. So one more recap here. We have logs. Okay, we have the about. We have the browse. We have the restore, the create, and the delete and settings. Green shield means it's running. Does it actually, when you log into your system, does it pop up and tell you Timeshift is running? No. Timeshift is also part of your startup package. Or is it? I would say you don't see that in here, do you? No, because it uses a different service. Okay, you have your update manager in here though. And I have some other stuff in here. But generally, just be aware that Timeshift is running quietly in the background. Again, you may see a gear or two pop up. Now, there's also another way to activate Timeshift, and that's done through your Updater Shield. You just click on it, and it's done through the Edit and System Snapshots this way. All you need to do is log in. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say Clem and his team put this here as a convenient factor. So you can create your snapshots if you're dealing with a quick Linux kernel change. But I'm stretching things. Again, it's just a convenience place for snapshots. Okay? If you have the time, I will talk about personal backups now. In other words, your personal folders. All right, there is a tool that Mint already has built in for you. It's called Backup. That tool does not use Rsync. This Timeshift uses Rsync, but this does not. I also have another tool called Grsync, which does use Rsync, and I'll talk about that after this one. So the backup tool you can also place on your panel, your desktop or favorites, if you like. I'm going to do it my way. And then I'm going to open the tool and explain a couple of things about it if you've never used it. Starting with the hamburger menu, there's the About. It's just a simple backup tool, 244. It has no options. There's a website you can click on also. It has two boxes, and it has two categories, restore and backup. Software selection is just a list of applications that you can back up, a list. This is more for the file part of it, and it does not back up all your files either. Also, the fact is, this tool is not perfect, but more importantly, there are no other options as far as compression is concerned, compressing your backup files, or different formats. It only does one format, and that is tape archive, TAR. Backup now. Default is backup in this folder right here, Documents. I'm going to hit forward. In other words, this should be next. Then it's going to exclude, not include, exclude document backups. In other words, there's a folder in here which is not going to back up because you may have already some existing backups. You can also exclude other folders. Another name for that is directories or other files. I'm going to hit forward, which means next. You can also include hidden files and folders. If you decide to include folders or directories, they start with a period or a dot. It may be too small for some folks to see this. Again, filming in 1920 by 1080. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to produce a file that ends with .tar. Not the type on your roads. Not that kind of tar. Tape archive. I've been around computers for over 40 years, and tar has been around since the Unix days. A lot of the folks in the Linux community call this a tar ball. I call it a tar box, just to have a little fun. Well, what's in the box? Not everything. Let me click the home folder to let you see this. So there is an extra file here called period or dot meta mint, and this file is a text file. This is a text editor, exit. And all this states is num files 373. And that's all it says there. You do not see the backup folder in here. You do not see my junk folder in here. You do not see public or templates because it doesn't back up files and folders that have zeros in them. That backup tool does not give a complete picture of what I have in my home folder. Well, Bob's in this case. A lot of you folks that are in the Linux community will know what I mean by this. When you do a full backup of your home folders, you sometimes want to copy all the folder names with them and place them in a tar ball because you need the names of the folders even though they currently have nothing. So you can reproduce that on a different system. For most home users, it doesn't make sense. So this is plenty good because these don't contain anything. However, if you decide you want that kind of backup that has everything, then you do a Control A. For some of you folks that don't like keyboard things, that is Edit, Select All. Same thing, Control A. Right-click on any one of these. You'll see the word compress as the second option on the bottom. Now, there is plenty of compression options here, starting with period or .7z, ending with period or .zip. These are compressed. There's also tar, which is not compressed. There's also tar with an extension of .7z or period 7z. That is compressed. So you have lots of choices. This backup tool did not give me any choices. It only did tar. So I'm going to do the same over here, using the tool in the File Manager Nemo only. I'll call this backup. So if you do this on a regular basis, you're backing up this way, I would recommend not time stamp, more of a day stamp is one would call it. Just put today's date on those things. Be 24. 2014 would be old. Anyways, and when I hit go, you'll see a file being created that'll have a cryptic name until it finishes. You can see it has a weird name, and now it's finished. That's 1.3 gigabytes. So tar balls, or tar boxes, is what I call it, are not compressed. Everything is in the box. So that includes my 0-byte type of folders. So if I'm taking the tar ball or tar box and putting them on the stick or another internal or external drive, I can place that on other systems as sharing files possibly, maybe, if they're not proprietary. But more importantly, I can recreate the folders on the other end too. Or I can just generally use that for backup. So that is 1.3 gigabytes. That also includes this backup. That was only 650 megabytes. But the reason it did it so quickly is because this is not compressed. This again is a tar file or a tar ball. If I used compression, it would be slower. The cool thing about doing this in Mint too is, let's say I wanted just one photograph out of here. I would of course need the name of it because mine are numerical, but I know what this one is. It's a butterfly. That's all I needed out of the box. All right, honorable mentions. So Timeshift uses Grsync. Also, I have an application installed that is called Grsync. That is graphical Grsync. So Timeshift uses Grsync and Grsync uses Grsync. You can also run Grsync all by itself without installing this app and create yourself script files. I do this quite often. I have examples of it for home use. Anywho's, graphical Grsync is one of those where you just do source and destination. What that means is, what are you copying? Where's it going? And you can choose some options. I have full videos on how to use this stuff if you just subscribe and look for Grsync in the search field of those 360 videos that I have. I'm going to close this and say thank you for watching.